The world is still 23 degrees sideways, and today we are going to talk about identities, diets, marketing, and some basic carnivore philosophy. The carnivore philosophy is towards the end. It's not really the important part of this video, but it's kind of a cohesive whole. This is going to be where I really want to start focusing on more of the personal development, knowing yourself and knowing why things are sideways, without getting so much into the ideological battlefield. There was a post on a carnivore forum that I'm on recently, and it was quoting Amber O'Hearn, who is a carnivore writer. She's one of the big names in carnivore eating, and she was talking about the idea that you shouldn't call yourself carnivore if you're not carnivore. Like, I'm 40% carnivore, I'm 60% carnivore. None of that really applies. Carnivore is a way of eating. It's not something that you are a percentage of. And she explains that she's not doing this because she wants to be elitist or anything, but because she wants the word to have meaning. And I agree with her to some extent. I think there's a few things going on in the subject, and we need to talk about that more. People are starting to use the carnivore diet as a keyword thing, much like people use keto or Mediterranean diet as a keyword while they're stuffing their face full of donuts. And there's a few things going on here. Of course, one category is identity and marketing, two separate things that are very closely tied. I realize that they are different things, but programming for identities is heavily caused by marketing, so we're going to have to discuss them together right at this moment. I've met a lot of people who claim to be on a keto diet while stuffing their face full of donuts. And I'm not joking. I have literally had people tell me about their keto diet while munching on a big glazed donut. If you don't know what I'm talking about, keto is the modern phrase, the modern shorthand for a very low-carb, usually high-fat diet, where you put your body into ketosis to lose weight and you change your metabolic basis to fat instead of sugar. At least in terms of diet. You feed yourself fat instead of sugar. There's some serious advantages to it. There are metabolic pathway advantages to it. There's some really good insulin factors. However, the theory behind it gets a little more complicated than I want to get into in this video. Or people who say, I'm keto 4 days a week, or I'm keto except on Taco Tuesday, or except when my family comes over, or I'm keto 3 days a week, or I'm keto for 2 meals a day. You are moderating your carbs at that level, but you're not keto. You're not Atkins. Natural Atkins is great, by the way. You're not carnivore. And the two factors that we got to talk about are identity and marketing, why this happens. Identifying as keto, or Atkins, or Mediterranean, or low carb, or carnivore is a big deal to people. Identities are a huge thing. It gives you an idea and an identity, a focus that you're trying. Okay, you're trying to eat more healthy, you're trying to lose weight, you're trying to do something. Identities are critical to human psychology, and everyone has them. And they're good. They are, however, corruptible. You can corrupt your identities. And right now, you can see this happening, okay? The vast majority of people who are using these identities want to be in ketosis, want to be ketogenic, Mediterranean, paleo. They want to be Atkins or very low carb. They want it to work and they want the benefits. They aren't fakers, even though their actions are faking it. They aren't fakers or anything. They're just corrupted and sidelined by a lot of external and internal factors. Internal factors are going to be largely addiction-based or behavioral-based. External factors are going to be, again, addictions because they operate both ways. And market programming is another major one. We're going to talk about market programming on that. So any of these things, keto, carnivore, VLC, Atkins, paleo, can be remarkably easy to do and adhere to and feel good on once you pass the addiction phase. Okay, you have several basic addictions. Sugar, cheese, coffee are the top three. However, the marketing has to allow that to happen. So marketing is a huge thing in corruption. If you go to Walmart right now and you go down their aisle where they have all of the diabetes supplies, Atkins stuff, nutrition bars, Band-Aids, that little health section over by the pharmacy, you will see rows and rows down the center of keto pills, keto tablets, keto powders, keto shakes, keto additives that are supposed to make you keto while you're eating donuts. They're supposed to make you feel keto or make you be keto while you eat a shitty diet. None of these things are food, but they're all supposed to magically make your otherwise awful diet into keto. Marketing makes any truth into a lie for a little extra money. This is a very important point. Marketing will take any truth and make it into a lie for a little extra money. So this goes hand in hand with problem 2, which is we've been programmed by marketing to need, and I mean need, like people go crazy. This is a need to add things, to improve things, to buy new stuff. You can't be keto, simple Atkins, 1970s natural Atkins, in some people's minds without supplements, extra electrolytes, extra liver, extra ingredients, extra new things this week, new things that week, extra bars. You can't just do it. You have to. You've been programmed to need new stuff. A lot of people in the carnivore community, you can't be carnivore without electrolytes, liver, other organ meats, special purpose of freeze-dried organs, cod liver, special dehydrated other fish glands, and etc. The basic carnivore diet, the Anderson diet, that they've been on for 30-something years, fatty beef, water, salt, it works. It works fine, but people cannot handle it, okay? That's need. So all of these things that you need, none of them are objectively true. Some of it, sometimes, may help some people in certain circumstances beyond a placebo effect, but mostly it's going to be a placebo effect. But the real reason most of it's necessary, that placebo effect, is programming. We're going to step away from diet for a moment. We've talked about the identities. You identify with the diet, but you don't actually do it because the marketers have you convinced that if you spend money, it's going to have the same effect as doing. Okay? And you've been programmed to need additives, need additions, need new stuff. You can't just be what you are. So let's come back from that a little bit and to actually talk about the carnivore diet. So a carnivore diet is a meat-based diet. Most of the time that means meat only. Some people will still drink coffee or tea. I'm mostly opposed to that for various reasons. Coffee raises your cortisol levels. Cortisol is a huge blocking point to getting healthy amounts of sleep. Tea can also have similar effects, although it's a little less so. It kind of depends on where you're at with that. Cheese. So dairy products, a lot of people don't respond well to. Okay, it's a huge, significant part of the population. There's no need for cheese or dairy. Cheese, however, is very addictive. Okay, we've actually got research that backs up that it is basically like an edible opiate. And cheese addiction leads to, same with coffee addiction and sugar addiction, leads a lot of people to make excuses, okay? But I could have cheese. I tend to avoid cheese as a carnivore staple because of the addictive properties. I also tend to not respond well to dairy. I feel better without dairy. I suspect that the 2-3 ounces of cheese a week that I would be having on patties or steak or something would be okay, except that it's too late for me. I've already spent my lifetime with the addiction, so let's just cut it out entirely. My kids, maybe they can handle moderation. So with carnivore, you have animal based, and for some people that includes dairy. For most people that also includes the idea of eggs, which is fine, and I do reasonably well if I'm eating home-sourced eggs, homegrown eggs. Commercial eggs do not agree with me very well, and there are lots of reasons for that in my case, because I have more severe autoimmune sensitivities ever since I got back from the big sandbox. More interesting complication on carnivore is philosophy. So we've got the meat-based idea, and notice I said meat-based, not meat exclusive. For most of us in the modern carnivore movement, meat exclusive. Animal-based, so butter, cheese, lard, but for me it's much more focused on just eating the meat and not the stuff around it. Once again, eggs are okay. There are people who consider carnivore to be heavy fat, so 80% of your calories from fat, no plant drinks, no seasonings except salt. Like me, we follow this with the exception of certain very rare medicinals. Whether it's a tea, a tincture, or an oil. And no, I'm not talking about pot. I don't go near THC. I think it's not the panacea that people think it is. I think that it has uses, but it's not a panacea. And those certain occasional medicinals are part of the toolbox. There are people who consider themselves carnivore, but who have a handful of wild berries once in a while in season, less than 2 pounds a year, and avoid all tree fruits, domesticated fruits, berries, domesticated berries, and citrus. So that's a different kind of thing, and there's an evolutionary idea behind that, which I don't think you can actually dismiss out of hand, that the occasional little berry while you're walking around is not a bad thing. But all domesticated berries and fruits, and all tree fruits that we eat at this point are domesticated, long domesticated, are 3 times, 4 times, 20 times in some cases as sweet as their natural counterparts. So you don't eat raspberries you buy at a store, but if you go find a patch and you pick 1 or 2, 7 or 8 in the wild, that's different. Same thing with like roseberries, rose hips. There are people who consider themselves carnivore with heavy seasonings. So in the archaeological record, you see that we basically have been barbecuing for 1.5 million years. One of the reasons we have these brains in the bodies that we inhabit is that we started eating very heavy fat, high meat, exclusively carnivore diets about 1.5 million years ago when we started cooking them. Okay, somewhere between 1.5. So we've been grilling for a very long time. And we've been grilling with, well, garlic, mint, herbs, and sometimes those things make their way into your food in quantities, like noticeable chunk quantities. Dry powdered seasonings are a fairly recent invention, and they're a problem in a lot of cases. So actually stuffing a rolled up piece of meat with like 5 or 6 cloves of garlic and a bundle of sage or mint, and then eating that all together could still be considered carnivore if you follow that basic philosophy that seasonings, even seasonings that have mouth-filling capacity, are part of your carnivory. It's still not going to be more than 2, 3, maybe as much as 5% of your diet, and it's a very dangerous road philosophically because it leads you into the idea that you're just going to grab and eat 50 grams worth of carbs out of grilled onions, which is way out of line. So I don't mean any of this judgmentally, okay? I would consider someone who stuffs wild mint and sage into their meat and grills it and eats the whole thing, woohoo, whole ounce of mint there, to be more evolutionary carnivore than someone who eats cheese, for example. And I'm not judging cheese. I have a close relative here in the family who is carnivore, and he lives mostly on cheese patties, cheeseburgers, burger patties with cheese on them. Like, that's 90% of what he eats, and nothing else. You know, some salt, but no no buns, no lettuce, no nothing. And he's doing really well, getting very muscular. And I wouldn't, I do make sure at least that we have decent cheddar and not that grocery store stuff, because every grocery store brand I have tried is horrible. So we get the basic Tillamook. And no judgment. He also drinks green tea. He's not, I don't consider him non-carnivore. I have another partner here in the household who she does not consider herself carnivore at all, although she eats less than a cup of veggies a week. Yeah, she does drink coffee, but she doesn't consider herself carnivore. It's just the family way of eating is kind of how she eats. And, you know, there's another partner here, and she is very much with me on the red meat, water, salt with the occasional eggs. And that's it. And she's doing really well. So there's different philosophies on carnivore, and I'm not trying to say that my philosophy is best. My philosophy is based a lot on autoimmune protocol issues. And I think that there's room for a little bit of breadth and some different ideas about how evolutionary you want to be with your carnivory. So that's that as far as carnivory goes. We're going to talk a lot more about identities and marketing in future videos. And I want you to pay attention and start thinking about what it is you need, why you need something new, why you need a change, and how much of that might be programmed advertising or habit, and how much of that might be an actual need for improvement. All right, so we're going to just say stay sideways here. Remember to like, share, subscribe. Please spread it out. I would like to get some more subscribers because I have some really interesting stuff I want to do. And have a good one.